So, welcome back to Thomas Talks. Today, we're diving into a conversation which is buzzing everywhere, especially among men. Do women really want confidence in a man? Let's get into it. So, first things first, do you think that confidence is really very important in a man? Or is it all, just buzzwords?
If he has nothing else, if it's only for mating, not for marriage, confidence is sometimes the only thing that's required. Because sometimes that's all that a girl has to go with. You understand, right? How he carries himself. If he's, let's say, not fidgety, if he's slow and deliberate and talks with a baritone voice, and where he pretends as if he's really not interested in the girl, but she is the one who feels that he's mysterious, he's unfathomable, okay, it makes him more attractive, okay. Now he looks like he's in control. You understand, right? So, and of course, confidence also is also portrayed by the way he grooms himself, the way his posture. It's an old classic James Bond thing, right? Okay, all the girls run behind him for that because he's like it's such a cool cat. That shows leadership, that shows power, that shows dominance, that shows hypergamy. You understand that he's up there, you understand, an authority, and there's nothing more attractive in a guy than a man of authority.
That actually makes a lot of sense. So, since we have established that confidence is actually one of the key factors in a relationship, what do you think makes confidence? Is it money, cars, success, or is it something else entirely?
Actually, it's none of these. Because some guys can have everything, and yet they can think they're losers. In fact, some of the most successful men actually believe they're losers, at least when they start off their lives. That's why many of the nerds don't get girls. They're actually very, very successful guys, okay? So very often, confidence is just, okay, I'm going to use self-belief. Believe that you got it. And there's probably nothing more self-satisfying, more, endearing and secure to woman than a guy says, honey, I got it. But she can just chill. Then she knows that, okay, the world is secure and a good place because my guy, he's got my back. You know that? Or they say in Hindi, right?
In the olden days, when guys would get rejected, they would do some self-introspection and they would actually up their game. But now, we are noticing a trend that men are shifting towards incel and red pill culture. Even though if it's just a name, I think men are shifting towards there. So, what do you think has impacted this trend or this shift?
Sometimes a lack of confidence is actually a good thing for his professional life, which means if he thinks that he has not yet achieved anything or achieved it, it's called dissatisfaction. Okay? It actually, there are two ways men react to that. Either they fight or they flight. Many guys just give in. Okay, they blackpill themselves. I'm not going to make life. It's not going to work out for me, and they just fall out of the system. Okay, they become incels, etc., or losers. Literally, unfortunately, I'm using a very crude, unfortunate term, but the truth. And there are other guys who say, okay, this is the mountain in front of me. I can either just walk back and fall in the ditch and die, or I climb this mountain. Often, which means, so that lack of confidence is actually a good thing because eventually that builds. Once he climbs that mountain, he'll still only start to like, I can't be that. He'll want another higher mountain to climb, and then another higher. Then once he's climbed enough mountains, then he can say, hey, boss, I'm at a summit all by myself here. That means I am a winner. It's very complex, got many multi layers to it. It's not just about men refusing to up their game. Let me start with a bit of history first of all. Throughout history, by the way, most men were involuntary celibate. In evolutionary terms, women were twice as successful as men. You know why? Almost every woman who ever lived up to the age of puberty and beyond had children. But only half the men had, which means only half the men ever got to mate with somebody and have a kid throughout history. That means 50% of male population throughout history were either way incels. Mainly because polygamy was there. So the rich guy or the powerful chieftain or whatever, he would take all the girls, okay, around the young guy would not get it. Or there'd be wars there all the time. If we think Arabia was no boss, we used to have a lot more wars that time. So a lot of guys would just not come back from battle. they'll die. And after life expectancy is very, very low those days. Okay, so various reasons. So it's by say inceldom is not really a new thing. In fact, it's only a hiccup in history that over the last few centuries, mainly because Christianity mandated monogamy and mandated that even the weakest would get married. Ideally speaking, they should up their game, but sometimes they just see that the obstacles are insurmountable. Ideally speaking, yes, they should get a better job, they should groom themselves better, they should educate themselves better, talk better, be more confident, cultivate confidence. But the funny thing is, we have classes for cooking, we have classes for meditating, we have classes for religious studies. But we don't have classes, especially in this age, on how to be your best self for the other sex. You understand? Which means how to be a good, let's say, boyfriend, how to get a good girl or a good boy for that matter, or how to be a good wife or husband. It sounds like weird, but the ironic thing is, olden days, mothers and grandmothers will actually groom, especially the women. They would groom the women because that is the primary job, right? They didn't have jobs. They at home, the mothers and would groom them to become good wives, good. Nowadays, we don't have that. For the most important relationship or probably the most important situation in your life, which is your relationship with the opposite sex, generally speaking, you're just winging it. You're just going with what you think might be right. It's just pure intuition. You understand, right? And sometimes you may not have good intuition. And guys don't have good intuition. Guys might think a girl is attracted to him, but she probably wouldn't give him the time of day.
Yeah.
On the hand, she actually may be attracted to him, but he can't figure it out. Okay? Or it could be that because of the Me Too movement, etc., many guys may be afraid even to approach the girl. And so it's very complicated. We live in a very complicated time because gender roles have changed, gender expressions have changed, a lot of things have changed.
But do you think that alongside these, inceldom and these rise of incels it also stems from the way we are raising young men today?
Yeah, true that. Yeah, we're raising young men today, and I'll be applying with you also raising young women. Now, I think it's a good thing. You know what? Men had traditionally had only two roles. They had to be strong protectors of the family and of women, and they had to be good providers, which means they were the main bread-earning people. Nowadays, most Western cultures, at least in half the family, I think the women earn more than men. You understand? So, which means the I'm a provider role is no longer there. Okay. And the protector women can take care of themselves. They have everything from guns to laws to stakes supporting them. Remember, there's no police, etc. Right? Okay, your main protector was basically your husband or a guy, right? That didn't exist. Such a thing didn't exist. So on hand now, all the women have all these backups, which means women no longer need men. You can say we blame it on the men, blame it on the women. I can't see women going back say, "But now we're going to stay at home and not going to work just to make men feel secure." That's not going to happen. So we have to find a median way. Do you understand? If we find a median way as to how men can find, and you know what the thing is, any image of a guy and a girl, if they're elementary, you almost always see the girl put her head on his shoulder or on his chest or on his lap. There'd be 1 in 1,000 where the guy's head maybe on her lap. That would happen maybe. When I was going through trouble, I was a certain amount of stress recently. I even asked my wife, "Can I put my head on your lap?" She of course said yes. But I still refrained myself. I still refrained myself because somehow instinctively I knew, no, you're showing weakness. Now we might say, no, we should be vulnerable and show weakness and cry in front of her. Yeah, I can do it once in maybe 10 years. Okay, I'm kidding, but very rarely, very rarely, because women don't appreciate that. But you know why? It makes her feel more insecure. If the guy she's depending on is feeling insecure, imagine how she's supposed to feel. He's supposed to be your protector, and he himself feeling all weak and wobbly and in lack of control of our situation. She and her family, and I think she'll think, "Oh, who's going to protect me?" You understand? So it's complicated. So, and as women, but what has happened now, because as I said, women are better educated or at least equally educated and can provide for themselves, protect themselves because the state protects them. Okay, women no longer depend on men. Women have become independent. Now suddenly men don't know what. So what's my role in this game? You understand? So it means suddenly what happens is that dependence that women had on men is no longer there. Now the solution is easy to say. They're both to be interdependent. There are certain things she needs to depend on. certain thing on him for, and certain thing he needs to depend on him for. And ideally speaking, there should be a division of labor. And usually, the classical way was for the things outside the home, the man's the boss. But when things within the home, the woman's the boss. Okay? But very often women don't want to give up the first part. They say, why I can be the boss outside also. So then suddenly, then where is my role? You can say up your game, but up your game to what? Everybody is not going to become Elon Musk, right? Most guys are just regular guys, okay? So it's a complicated situation, no? But let me tell you one thing. It's often not what you actually give up or what you do. It's often the impression of giving up, impression of doing it that's relevant. Let me give you an example. Women don't really have to give up their place outside the home. They just have to give men the assumption that boss, you're the boss.
The perfect mirage.
Yeah, it's a mirage. If women just give that role, give him a crown, give him a throne, but really speaking, she does all the pulling things, okay? That'd be the wisest thing that a woman can do. You know what I'm saying? So man feels, okay, I'm the boss, even though he knows the back of it, she's actually doing all the things, okay? And that is going to be very, very powerful because he gets his thing that he has the final veto, so to speak, okay? Now you will think, why should women do that? Why should I even bother? Let me give you an example to you. Because a happy spouse is also a happy life.
Of course.
It's not just a happy wife, happy life, but a happy spouse, happy life. Sometimes, for your own personal happiness, it makes sense to sort of bend or stoop to conquer. You understand? It makes sense to stoop to conquer. For example, I told you, right? If there's a friction between a husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend, no matter who's at fault, it's almost always the guy should apologize. Okay, right? Now you'll think, why should I? I'm not wrong. She did the wrong. Okay, but you know why? Because she's never going to apologize first, okay, or very rarely. But usually when he apologizes, then she'll say, no baby, I'm sorry, it's my mistake. Then she'll also come out. Actually, often happens, okay? But first move rarely made by her when it comes to apology. Just like first moves in starting this was never come by her. First moves in these apologies was never come by her. He wants always the guy to make a first move, okay? Even if she's at the wrong. She knows it, but she's waiting for him to make a first move to show that, okay, in a way, his first move is way to her to tells her, he has actually forgiven me. That's why he's telling me sorry. You know what right? Okay? But a guy still does in a way because if she's happy, he's going to be happy. Same story. You know what right? So same story by giving him the crown and the throne, but not any real powers. Okay? He's going to be happy, but because he's happy, she also is going to be happy.
A protector and provider. These are very traditional roles for men, and rightfully so. What happens when a man is unable to fulfill these roles?
So there are times when, despite our best efforts, life, circumstances, universe, maybe God Almighty Himself, you think has been unfair to you. Yesterday in church, for example, I saw this old man walking with an old woman, right? But I could make out the old woman was more incapacitated than he was. And he was sort of holding her hand, walking with her. Do you understand what I'm saying? The relationship is that you can't always be strong, either party. There are times when maybe he lost his job because the economy is bad, God forbid. Or maybe he had an accident, or she did for that matter. That's when the other person has to fill in. That's why that old marriage was, right? Through richness and through poverty, through sickness and through health. You understand? That's what lives. It's not only for the good times. And unfortunately, that's what most people, unfortunately, is once they go through stress, once they go through whatever, God forbid, terrible things life throws at you, those so-called senseless tragedies, they just want to walk out. Not because they're bad people, because they can't handle it. Because their life itself is tough, their own life tough, and then they see the other partner suffering, and they see, come on, maybe they didn't and see, but unfortunately, that's your job. You need to be there, that's your job. As long as you know he's making the best effort. If he's one laid back, lazy couch potato, that's not excusable behavior. That's not it. But you know what I tell you? Women domesticate men. Women are lion tamers. The guy is a lion boss, but you know who has in a circus? You know who has a power? You think he's a lion or lion tamer? Lion tamer. He just has a whip and a chair. The lions used to have everything else. She's 10 times stronger, everything. But but the real power lies in lion tamer. Same story. She can actually make him a better man.
Yeah. So, since you talk about jobs and failures and job failures, What do you think is a greater stressor for a man? A career failure or a relationship failure?
See, first you can understand what is important for a man is directly proportional to what is important for a woman, and vice versa for the person above. Because we instinctively know what the other sex, what my partner or my mate or my lover or my wife or husband values. Let me tell you for women. Women want you to keep her and your family as first priority, but not as the only priority. She wants you to be as serious in earning a living, being successful, being ambitious, having a vision for the future. In other words, she wants you to be a warrior. Do you understand? You could be a farmer, but not a farmer who just next year he wants to do a little better than this year. Or it could be a carpenter, he wants to make a better chair, or he wants to earn a little more next year than this year. That's what she wants, because women always see the potential with that.
Yeah.
Women always see potential with that. Guys, unfortunately, don't see potential in women, thank God. You know why? Guys usually go for men only for the one thing, looks. And as somebody recently said, looks is something unfortunately doesn't last. But potential, a guy, which actually hopefully if you get higher in pay, should be earning better, she gets more powerful, more respected, more social status as she goes up the ladder. So she actually gets a better deal. He marries her for looks when she's young, which unfortunately will not last when you're 40 plus. But she doesn't marry for looks, but she marries for other things which actually will start climbing up and up. Generally speaking, God willing, all things being okay.
So, since you touch upon problems that can occur with both the genders, what do you think a woman can do to support a man in her life?
Women need attention. Men need cheerleading. And I say cheerleading means, women need somebody who will give her attention, who will desire her, who will give her love, all that, who will hug her, all that. Men really don't need any of that. Men need somebody when he does something and he gets a small increment in his salary. Only tell him, I'm so proud of you. That's it. Believe me. And that will make him do something so that she'll be as proud of him next time. Always make him do better. Okay? That's why I think I mentioned sometime now. That's why in football matches, what are the cheerleaders always women? We never find male cheerleaders. You understand, right? You find male fanboys to girl athletes. Okay? But you won't find male cheerleader. Okay? Right? Okay? So in other words, where every small successful man, and every time you tell him, I believe in you, I trust you, I think you can do good, or let's say he's fallen. Don't go around telling his boss, you're a loser. No generic statements like that, okay? Tell him that, I think next time you can do better. For our sake, I'm sure you'll do much better. He will do much better. It's just like a football coach will do it. Every match you don't win, right? If the football coach goes and tells the kid, you guys are all losers, man, every match you are losing. You know what? The next match will say they lose. So they need that pumping up. You can call it the male ego, whatever you want to call it, okay? It's important to pump them up. They also feel stronger once they feel that somebody's supporting them.
So we touch upon a lot of things that a woman can do to uplift a man in her life. But in your opinion, what are some of the things that a man can do to boost his own confidence?
Okay. There are only two options available in front of human beings, generally speaking, in front of any threat, in front of any opportunity, in front of any of those kind of things. Fight or flight. Go for the low-hanging fruit, the easy way out, instant gratification, hedonism, narcissism, nihilism, all those reserves, which means I just want to make my life as bland, as blah, as boring, as terrible as possible. Because unfortunately, bland, boring, blah, ends up being terrible. Because you're just not taking the best option. But sometimes the sweetest fruit is on the highest branch. You might have to climb. Now, I'm going to tell you something, guys. Most people just choose the status quo, or they just choose to flight, which means run out. That's what most incels do. They black pill themselves, red pill themselves. Which is really another way of logging on and say, I can't live without men. Men go their own way. MGTDOW, which means men go their own way. That's not the aim. You know what the thing is? Fight. It means sacrifice. It means sometimes you have to work hard at it. It means you probably have to go to the gym, you probably have to study harder, probably have to work hard at your job, well, make bigger efforts with your loved ones, okay? It's a lot of work. But willing self-sacrifice is how anybody succeeds in anything in life. In anything in life. So that is something you should really do. You have to, since the old cliche, no gain without pain. Boss, that pain, without the pain, I know none of us want pain. I know we're living in a very, where everything is taken care of in an instant. But some things, there are no shortcuts. There is some amount of pain. And that pain is like a seed that breaks. I'm quoting Jesus here. But once that seed breaks, guess what? From that broken seed comes the great plant and the great tree and the great fruit from the great tree. But that breaking of the trees of the seed is sometimes very, very important. And so you need to, that's the only solution. Not logging out and not saying I'm a loser, I don't want women, or I turn, whatever. You know, or become sologamy or whatever you call it. That's not the solution. You've been warriors. Throughout history, you've been warriors, guys. You know, they say when they take two pictures of a guy and they take a picture of a guy and a girl, guys almost always choose a picture of a girl who's smiling. But women always choose a picture of a guy who seems to have a moderate amount of stress and aggression. They don't want a living guy. What is that, right? Okay, so almost always. That shows evolution also. Women respect men who why he's under stress and aggression, because he's probably facing a challenge and he's trying to fight it. So remember that's the thing. If you fight it, you will win, guys. You might lose some battle, doesn't matter. As long as at the end of the day, guys, you have your family with you, your loved one with you, and you can go home and say, I fought the good fight, I've run the race, and rest I leave to God. Be good to God. What are you guys going to sacrifice this week? Ask yourself, make a chart. What are you guys going to sacrifice this week to make your life much better?
Well, I think I am personally going to eat better. And whatever you guys are doing for yourselves next week, drop it down in the comments below. This is a conversation that we need to keep having. Self-confidence, self-worth, masculinity, and the way we are raising young men today. It is all interconnected. Thank you for joining us today on Thomas Talks. Until then, like, share, and subscribe.